riots last night at the University of California at Berkeley. You watched them break out live on this show last evening. The man who made that campus tremble joins us tonight in the studio for his first interview following the outbreak of violence. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Few people are hated more by the left than Milo Yiannopoulos, the gay Jewish immigrant who's become the face of the red-pilled right. Evidence of that was on full display last night at Berkeley, where Milo was scheduled to speak, but was evacuated shortly before the speech for his own safety. That was America last night. Breitbart editor Milo Yiannopoulos joins us for his first interview since we spoke with him by phone last night. Milo, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So here's the reason I want to talk to you. It's not to endorse your views, many of which I agree with, some of which I don't. But the point is, you tried to express your views and were prevented by a violent mob. So if you were an anarchist or a Scientologist or a flat earth activist, it wouldn't matter. You were not allowed to exercise your First Amendment rights, and that's shocking. Give us first a quick recap of what happened last night to you.
Well, I think I agree with you in the first place. I mean, I'm not any of the things that these posters characterize me as in an effort to legitimize the violence. But even if I were, I don't think it would matter for the reasons you say. So I went in to do my talk. We go in a couple of hours before to set up our tech and for me to, you know, put on a costume or something. I had a wonderful outfit plan, which is the main reason I'm upset about yesterday. I was going to go as a native. I was going to talk about cultural appropriation in full Native American headdress. I had a full custom headdress with my name embroidered on it. I'm so mad that I didn't get to wear that. Anyway, we went in for like an hour or two beforehand. We were planning it, and suddenly there were these explosions outside. There were firecrackers and rocks being hurled at the building. The police were having things hurled at them, and I was evacuated up to the 5th floor, like by the fire escape. It was all very exciting. And then suddenly, you know, I was being taken out of the building. I was informed that I was being evacuated because there were hundreds of protesters outside, blowing things up, hurling things at the police. The police didn't seem to me to be doing very much aside from hiding inside the building. The ground floor had been stormed, so we had to rush down to the parking lot, find one car, and that exit was blocked, so we ran to another car, and we finally got in one, and I was, you know, bundled in, put in a bulletproof vest, and whisked away. And that is the price you pay for being a libertarian or a conservative on American college campuses. The mayor of Berkeley, who was sort of gleefully egging this stuff on yesterday, who today had to apologize for you know, the usual leftist name calling of me today.
What did he say about you?
Well, the usual slurs, you know, this white supremacist speaker. I mean, please, anyone who's spent 5 seconds in my company or 2 seconds in my bedroom knows I'm not a white supremacist. But you know, this usual slurs that they wheel out in a sort of effort to legitimize violence against you. You know, they want to call you the worst possible name. It's like, you know, the punch a Nazi thing, right? Well, I could imagine a reasonable person being taken some way along the argument of, like, it's okay to punch Nazis, but the problem is that the left calls everyone Nazis. So basically they can punch anybody whose opinion they don't. But the real problem is this name calling, because, you know, as grateful as I am to be on the show and I like the attention, the real people that I want to hear from are, you know, the guys who run CNN, who are legitimizing ordinary conservatives being called white supremacists, anti-Semites, racists, sexists, when they're not. There's an inevitable, obvious consequence to this.
Well, I obviously have an interest in this because I don't anymore work at that network, so I don't even want to affirm what you just said, but I have to because it's true. Now, here is a tweet that they sent out, and I'm quoting. Yeah. This is from a CNN Twitter feed. Extremist Milo Yiannopoulos, whose Berkeley event sparked protests, takes on the college establishment and rallies white supremacists. That's from the CNN Twitter feed. I mean, is any of that true?
No, I mean, it beggars belief. I mean, you know, it just beggars belief.
But the subtext is you deserve it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And these people must be held to account. You know, the media has created this environment in which it's okay to say almost anything about somebody who is, you know, right of Jane Fonda. You know, if you have slightly conservative or even libertarian points of view, especially if you are persuasive and charismatic and funny and effective, like we both are, you will get called the most appalling things. And it's a way of legitimizing, in some cases, as happened last night, violent responses.
Headline over the story about what happened last night. This is today. Berkeley cancels Milo Yiannopoulos' speech and Donald Trump tweets outrage. No mention of the fact that you were shut down by a mob. And this is the first line. A speech by the divisive right-wing writer Milo Yiannopoulos, University of California, Berkeley,
they're trying to insinuate. I mean, Bloomberg did the same thing. They said Milo Yiannopoulos sparks riots. You know, I was like, hang on a second now. What are they trying to assert? one of the things that authoritarians hate, one of the things dictators hate, is the sound of laughter, because they can't control it. They can't control what you find funny. And that's one of the reasons the left is always trying to dictate what humor is acceptable. You know, oh, you can't tell that joke because that's sexist. You can't tell that joke because that's racist. Well, they do that because laughter you can't control, and trying to sort of hammer that down. I'm the worst example for them of somebody who is persuasive and interesting and funny. Every one of my shows is sold out. Every single time I do a talk, people say, I never thought of that. You've really converted me. So that makes me dangerous. Dangerous because my audience is so young, so big, so strong. I'm the person probably that annoys them more than anybody except Donald Trump, because I'm effective. And that scares them.
The lieutenant governor, by the way, of California, did not attack Gavin Newsom, did not attack the mob that set vehicles on fire and tried to injure you, and did injure a bunch of other people, but attacked Trump for threatening the funding.
Well, you know, this seems to be a fairly obvious consequence. If you don't uphold your legal responsibility to, you know, to enforce the First Amendment, you know, to provide speakers with platforms and audiences with safe, the ability to go and listen to speakers of all different kinds, agnostic of ideology, as you were saying earlier, if you don't do that as a university, you're not performing your essential function.
What is hate speech?
I don't know. I'm probably going to get in terrible trouble with them, but I have no idea, and I don't think anybody else knows either. I mean, it seems to be speech that somebody doesn't like somewhere, a joke that's wrong, some you know, thing that someone offends someone's sensibilities or hurt feelings or politics or something. Certainly the Supreme Court doesn't recognize it as a kind of speech that should be, you know, treated with any special reference or whatever. Hate speech, it seems to me, has been defined by the political left as anything we don't like, anything that violates social justice doctrine, feminism, Black Lives Matter kind of ideology. It's not something that I have ever heard particularly effectively defined. This book is already going to be one of the big books of 2017. It is going to be one of those, a big sort of signature, you know, cultural moment for a particular millennial generation that suddenly woke up and decided that being Republican was cool and was a libertarian, you know, punk alternative choice. I'm one of the people they look up to as a, you know, as a sort of, as a whatever cultural figure. This book actually is much more serious than people imagine. So if you're a feminist or a Black Lives Matter activist who is looking to be offended by this book, you might be disappointed. And if you're somebody who's going in just thinking, oh, this is going to be a load of, you know, jokes about his black boyfriends and, you know, and name calling and fat jokes, you might also be disappointed. This is a pretty substantial book. It's a book that sets out where I believe America went wrong in terms of respecting the First Amendment, the state of free speech on American college campuses and in the media and in academia and everywhere else in American public life.
So we talked about the
Honestly, I mean, I don't mean to be theatrical, I'm prone to melodrama, but it was horrifying. To come here, you know, land of the free, home of the brave, blah, 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 you know, and for me to do a college tour, to be a journalist here, you know, imagine the fourth estate in America. You could be able to say, do, be anything, right? That's what you would think coming from Europe, where we really don't have free speech protections. I mean, if it exists, there are rules about it. If it exists, it is regulated in Europe, you know? In Europe, you can get arrested for being misogynist, arrested for being offensive. You know, these are actual offenses. These are things the police can come and take you away for in Europe. You know, as Americans don't really understand how bad it is in Europe. In America, I always imagined that this was a country where you could be, do, and say anything. And what I've discovered, not just in journalism, but also in the entertainment industry, and particularly and most importantly in academia, which is where I kind of try and park my tanks on the lawn and really take the fight to the left, which is why they hate me so much, because conservatives are so spineless all the time. I take the fight to them, and on American college campuses, I have experienced, you know, restrictions on the freedom of speech, groupthink, and penalties, social and institutional penalties,
and financial penalties,
for free expression, like nothing I ever experienced in Europe.
So really, we're almost out of time, but we have guardians of the First Amendment, official ones. The ACLU is the leading one historically. We tried to get Anthony Romero, the head of it, on tonight to talk about this. Yeah. He's refused to come on. We also, by the way, tried to get the Human Rights Campaign to come on to talk about this too. But has anybody from the ACLU or PEN America or any people who claim to represent the First Amendment called you to say, we're going to help?
No, of course not. No, of course not, because these organizations have been, you know, have almost completely given themselves over to a particular view of free speech that is hugely restrictive and which circumscribes, you know, which cuts out mainstream, ordinary conservative opinion. There's a reason there's a sort of parallel conservative media in this country. There's a reason why there's this extraordinary bifurcation between liberals and conservatives in this country. It is because the establishment, the media, academic and entertainment establishment has made certain sorts of political opinion, respectable, reasonable, mainstream opinion, impossible to express in public.
It's the definition of corruption, unfortunately. We're all going to pay for it. Milo, thanks a lot. That was interesting.
Thanks.
Good to see you.